Season 7's 4th episode of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. aired just last night, and I, ever the fan of the show, am once again here to break it all down. Well, hello there! My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're watching the newest season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's time to talk all about Episode 4, also known as Out of the Past. A title which I think is a reference to something that happens near the end of the episode, and I'll talk about it when we get there. So let me say right off the bat, this is my favorite episode of the entire season so far. And of course, this means spoilers ahead before I talk about it. So let's jump right on in. The episode picks up just a little past where we left off. We're still in 1955 and Coulson's back awake again, and our whole world, the episode, is black and white. Which we kind of use Coulson as an excuse for, although everyone's parts in it are black and white until later in the episode. So it's really just a good excuse to go play a film noir. And that's certainly the feel we get because Coulson's busy playing the part of our narrating detective to start. And I loved it. They nailed the feel for it. And for me, I love film noir, that's for sure. So it definitely worked for me. Let's see, we find out that Sousa was to meet a contact and transport a package that would eventually make it to Howard Stark. It's a package that held the foundations of S.H.I.E.L.D. tech. But that Agent Sousa would end up dying tonight after delivering the package, and supposedly he's killed by the Russians. Whew. So we gotta make sure it happens. Well, so that means Coulson ends up convincing Sousa that they're on the same side, and they head off to the train to take the package. And that whole piece between Coulson and Sousa's, of course, fought as usual. But hey, before that happens, Coulson's got to make a phone call. But who in the world can he call with just a normal phone in 1955? Oh wait, we do have someone in 1955. Good ol' Enoch's back. Also, this becomes a fun recurring joke in this episode with 3 of our characters calling the bar that Enoch is still at. 24 years later now? So first Coulson calls, then Yo-Yo, and then finally Zeke. The joke of it all being, of course, that Enoch would love to hear from them and rejoin them, but they're only calling to have him put them in contact with the rest of the team. Oh, poor Enoch. You really feel bad for him. And what's worse, Zeke actually would have talked with him and seemed genuinely empathetic. But Enoch had already gotten hit twice and didn't wait to get hit a third time and just transferred Zeke right on over before he could finish talking. And Enoch doesn't make it onto Zephyr 1 at the end of this episode either, so poor Enoch. Well, I guess we will get to see Enoch again sometime in the future. So now Yo-Yo and Zeke are dashing off to go get the package. Now, the conversation in the car about racism and sexism is straight to the point. And interesting, especially with Yo-Yo on one side and our white male Zeke over on the other. This whole conversation about racism and sexism was really bad in the 30s. And now it's still bad, but it's better. And never quick enough. But then Zeke, of course, saying, well, we can't mess up the timeline. And Yo-Yo takes that as, yay, status quo. This whole question about, should we mess with the timeline? Should we interfere? See, this keeps coming up bit by bit, and the characters are not set in one place as far as their opinions here. For instance, Zeke this episode is going to get confronted with the consequences of not changing things, and he'll end up telling Yo-Yo later in the episode that he's on board with trying to change things to make them better. And that really could be interesting. We seem to have this ever-growing conflict brewing. Before, it was Daisy especially taking that position. It's gonna break out bigger at some point. I just definitely see that one brewing, and I'm curious just how big that's gonna become. Looking forward to it. Well, anyway, Yo-Yo and Zeke get to the right house and find the contact has been face-zapped by the Chronocoms, but hey, at least the package is still there. But Zeke gets abducted. No! Is it the Russians? The Chronicoms? Or perhaps Hydra? Now, because Yo-Yo goes off to find Zeke, that means Coulson has to improvise as the package won't be delivered to him in time. So he fakes it from someone who puts their hand over their face to go to sleep, and then he just goes over and pretty much just steals the guy's briefcase. Yeah, gotta love it. Eventually, Coulson gets alone on the train because Sousa's gotten fed up with not getting told what the hell's in the case, and so guess who shows up? It's one of her good buddies, the Chronicoms, who has this really bizarre offer that he had to have a pretty good idea would never be successful in the first place. I mean, it's essentially, hey, stop fighting us and we'll be magnanimous overlords for humanity or something like that. Yeah, no, of course not. But hey, apparently that refusal means they're going to start getting messy in how they're fighting. And I must say that sounds quite intriguing. Definitely curious to see what might happen after that development. I mean, the possibilities are definitely intriguing. Are these messy enough situations that it should actually really impact our timeline? Just not enough that it really changes it heavily? And then we'll have to fix time later on somehow? Who knows? I'm definitely curious. I've got some possible thoughts on here, but right now it's just the starting stages. Well, anyway, in the meantime, Sousa gets into a fight with Russians or Hydra, and Daisy, Mac, and Coulson come in to save the day. And at this point, they decide, screw it, Sousa's gonna die tonight anyway, and the Chronicoms are involved, so let's just play it safe and take Sousa up onto Zephyr 1. Who cares if he finds out about the whole future tech and all that? It's fine. He'll die. Now, Sousa, not being an idiot, realizes pretty quickly that things don't add up. While everyone else is up talking about his fate, he takes off, determined as ever to complete his mission and take his fate into his own hands. I mean, that's definitely Sousa for you, right? Now, before we move onward, I've got a couple other things to jump over and talk to. So first off, May. We just found out a whole lot more about what's going on with May, this whole mystery that we've been living with for the last few episodes. And this is pretty big. So she has been feeling no emotions at all since she was brought back to life. We know she did last episode, and this one in a few places too. So apparently when she touches someone, she is suddenly flooded with her current emotions. And that's why she froze during the last episode, because she touched one of the panicked scientists. It's also why she was so excited about the contents of the briefcase, because she touched Simmons, and why she reacted so strongly upon shaking Sousa's hand. So this is an intriguing development, and she also goes ahead and then touches LMD Coulson just to check things out, and feels nothing. Ouch. That's not going to be good for the relationship, that's for sure. That is for sure. I mean, let alone the lack of feeling emotions being good for a relationship, but you get my point. Anyway, all of this leads to some really intriguing possibilities for May. I mean, first off, the lack of emotion is going to be really problematic for her as a character, and I've imagined we're going to deal with that more as time goes on. But on the plus side, she essentially gained a new superpower, and one which could probably act like as a lie detector, and also a chronicom detector too, as they don't give off emotions, just like Coulson. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities here, and I can't wait to see where we go with this. I mean, this is going to be pretty neat. Now, one other thing before we move on to the finale is that we need to talk about Zeke. So Zeke was abducted by... Anyone? Hydra. To be specific, he was abducted by good old Wilfred Malik. And Freddy's no longer the sweet, relatively innocent kid we saw in the first two episodes. He kills one of his underlings for failing him right in front of Zeke. And this is Zeke, who was unwilling to follow Daisy's orders and kill Freddy just a couple episodes because he was an innocent kid. So this is definitely going to go ahead and eat at Zeke, I would definitely imagine. And I mean, we see a bit of that in him talking to Yo-Yo later. And I'm really guessing we're going to dive a lot more into this issue as the show goes on. So how is this going to radicalize Zeke, and what is he going to do later on? Can't wait to see where we're going with that. Definitely I'm curious. Anyway, for the time being, he gets out of it by telling Malik that, guess what, he was the guy who saved his life last time. And Malik chooses to return the favor, so now they're even. Of course, this means Malik now knows that much more about weird, screwy stuff going on with the timeline. But he's going to learn even more than that here in a little bit. So anyway, love the development this makes for Zeke and his character arc of the season that we're seeing develop. And also, hey, love the development of Wilfred Malik here in the episode too. Curious what he'll be like the next time we see him. Well, anyway, enough waiting. Onward to the finale. So Sousa makes his handoff, and then later we see him get shot by a Hydra agent as ordered by Wilfred Malik. Not the Russians as history shows, which of course makes sense considering how Hydra certainly wouldn't want their existence coming to light just yet. And we see his cane sink in the pool as we see a face-down body. The same one from the beginning of the episode. Goodbye, Sousa. Or not. Astute observers should note that the body was face down and we never actually saw Sousa get shot, which are definitely the hallmarks of a fake-out coming. And most certainly, a fake-out it was. Although, in this case, our agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. needed to make it a convincing fake-out so history would still think that Sousa actually had died that night. And of course they succeeded at that. And to do it, they had LMD Coulson take a couple shots in the back and then lie face down in the pool. Being a robot, he can pull all that off, no problem. Some cool superpowers, quote-unquote, that Coulson's got, right? Now, the really cool thing that all of this means is that Sousa is now out of the past and with our agents. Pretty sure that's what the title of the episode was about. Which, wow, that's a reference to way late in the episode right there. But on the plus side, I don't think you'd catch that reference of the title until you get there. Certainly not me, anyway. Maybe you did. Anyway, so Sousa is out of the past, and now it looks like he's going to be part of the team. And hey, I told you one of the best things about the last episode was definitely Sousa being in there. And it looks like we've got a lot more Sousa to look forward to. Assuming we don't redshirt him at some point and just kill him off. So this is really cool. And oh, by the way, I also loved Coulson talking to Sousa about coming back from the dead. I do suppose Coulson would know a thing or two or three about that. Although, for Coulson, he actually kind of got to go back to his life. While for Sousa, aside from technically still being part of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's completely leaving his life and his time period behind. So, that's got to be a lot rougher if you're Sousa right there. Definitely looking forward to seeing more Sousa, though. Definitely looking forward to that. And now we're off to the end of the episode and time to jump to a new time period. So Alice Cooper's No More Mr. Nice Guy starts playing, which probably means we're off to 1973 as that's when the song came out. And hey, it was a fun way to go and getting everybody's reactions to hearing this song on the radio. Should be fun into the 70s. Now, that makes me wonder about the rest of the time jumps too. So far, we've had 2 episodes per time jump. The first 2 were both back in 1931. These 2 were in 1955. And I'm guessing the next couple will be in 1973. So it looks like we jump around 20-ish years each time. So probably, say, the 1990s for episodes 7 and 8. And I don't think you'd jump to the 2010s because that's too middle of the MCU. So maybe how about the late 2000s for episodes 9 and 10, putting us, say, maybe just before the first Iron Man movie. I mean, that would be interesting, right before the MCU technically has started all of its movies and franchise. That could be a really cool spot to jump to just for a moment. And then for episodes 11 and 12/13, because I think 12 and 13 are like a 2-hour-long finale thing going on. Maybe we have those back in present day, and maybe some kind of ultimate showdown with Hydra and or the Chronicoms. With a newly ascendant Hydra, it would seem that we can bring things full circle with the finale between the two sides. And hey, we're messing with time anyway. Yeah, you never know, maybe we could bring Grant Ward back in on the Hydra side, right? That would definitely be full circle right there. Excited to see where we go with it. Now, why do I say we might have an ascendant Hydra? Well, because in the button, we've got to talk a little bit about that. Because we see one of the Chronicoms going over there and talking with Wilfred Malik, and apparently he's going to stay behind and help Malik make Hydra more powerful. So now this is the timeline getting messy. And as I said, that could definitely bring us to a full circle fight with a newly powerful Hydra at the end of the show. And frankly, wouldn't that be a lot more interesting than a fight with the Chronicoms? I mean, we care more about a fight with Hydra when it comes to it, so yeah, that feels like it. That definitely feels the direction we're going. I've also got to ask, so at the end of all of this, will this show be in our main MCU timeline or somewhere else? I really don't know. It's an interesting question, I think, though. And I've got to say, this is how time travel makes things get messy really fast. Definitely excited to see what happens, though. So this episode, I just got to say, wow, one heck of an episode. As I said off the top, this is my favorite episode of the season so far. It fired on all cylinders. And yes, I'll admit, I'm a film noir fan, and this episode, especially the opening, played right into that, and I loved it. But our characters also got some good mileage out of this one too. And it had the right amount of fun mixed in. And we started a number of threads that are going to get explored later, like say with May or Zeke or Wilfred Malik, or some of the stuff with Sousa, which, speaking of, we added a cool new character to the roster. And the pacing of this episode was definitely solid. I've never felt a dull moment during this. This was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. humming like a well-oiled machine. So here's hoping for more episodes at this caliber later in the season. And how about that future? I can't wait for next week to see some of the costumes for the 70s. It's interesting to think that we're headed to just 3 years after where Endgame flashed back in time to. So that means we're in the time frame of Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne as the original Ant-Man and the Wasp. And if we were to run into Howard Stark, it would be the Howard Stark from Endgame, not the younger one from Captain America and Agent Carter. It would be Howard Stark who had just had a son 3 years ago. And this also means S.H.I.E.L.D. is headquartered over at that military base right now. Maybe we'll head that direction. And the lighthouse was just recently created, as we found out back in Season 5. And apparently they only thwarted the hydrogen wave crisis in 1972. Maybe we'll hear a little more about what the hydrogen wave crisis was, since we're coming in like a year later. Who knows? We'll see. And hey, considering the lighthouse and all of that, maybe we'll actually get to see General Rick Stoner in the flesh this time. And I love Patrick Warburton. If he shows up as a guest star in here, that could definitely be fun. So we'll see if that happens. I could definitely see it as a possibility. Now, I'm definitely not sure about what's going to be happening in this next episode. So many ways to go with it. But with the ominous, things are going to get messy, and the Chronicons having been helping Hydra for, say, 18 years now, definitely it ought to be interesting. So here's hoping. And hey, it's that time. So what about you? Did you love this episode? Are you excited to have Sousa as a member of our team? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share it with anyone else you think will too, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it yet already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, everyone, and may the Force be with you. Always.